Welcome to Live, Breathe Yoga, a show dedicated to inspiring your practice and elevating your mind, body, and soul. Today on Case Study, we discover the Ayurvedic practice of Sutra Neti. Coming up later in the show, get your mats ready for Strike a Pose, where we discover how to connect with a patient practice. Don't forget to stay tuned for Yoga Bites, where we share our recipe of the day. Mudra is the Sanskrit word for gesture and is used to deepen your awareness and concentration during your practice. It can involve a combination of asana, also known as postures, breathing techniques, locks, and visualization, or it can be as simple as a change in hand position. Chin is derived from the word chit or chitta, which means consciousness. With the palm facing upward, the small ring and middle fingers represent the three qualities of nature: inertia, creativity, and harmony. The index finger touching the thumb symbolizes the ultimate unity of individual and supreme consciousness and the culmination of yoga. Last season, we practiced Sutra Neti with the use of a neti pot. There is another way to cleanse and purify the nasal passageway, and that's with Sutra Neti. Traditionally, this is practiced with a thread. However, as a beginner, the use of a nasal catheter, like this one here, can also be utilized to safely find the nasal passageway. Find yourself in a relaxed position, either seated or standing. You're going to insert the catheter and twist to enter the nostril with ease. Once the catheter enters the back of your throat, use your index finger and thumb to pull the catheter gently and slowly through the mouth. Gently pull forward and back about 15 times to clear the passageway. Then remove the catheter through the nose and repeat on the opposite side. Sutra Neti has the same benefits as Sutra Neti in clearing out respiratory tract conditions such as asthma and bronchitis. In addition to this, it can help with problems with your deviated septum. Coming up next, Strike a Pose. Stay connected. Welcome back. In Strike a Pose, we share postures along with some modifications so you can practice safely at home or at the studio. Today we're going to start with Padmasana, lotus pose. This is an intense pose. Sometimes people are able to connect to it. If you see it in the practice, there's still a way to connect with it. So Kate's going to show how this pose looks in its full expression. So taking the right ankle over your left hip first, followed by the left foot. Beautiful. Now, if you come to the class and this pose is offered, the other option is easy seated pose. So simply crossing your legs, finding length from your tailbone to the top of your head, and while you're in the pose, just allowing your hips to open up by allowing your knees to melt to the earth. If you energetically allow this to happen, eventually, millimeter by millimeter, your body will allow you to open up. Now, one of the preparatory poses that you can connect to connect with Padmasana, lotus pose, is fire log pose. In fire log pose, you're basically stacking your shins on top of one another. Now, Lee's gonna demonstrate what it looks like if your hips are not that open. So you can see here, this is totally normal. For a lot of people, hips are tight, we hold a lot of emotion, a lot of stress in our hips. So while he's here, he's stacking his ankle over his knee, and the bottom ankle is going to try to align underneath the top knee. One of the main focuses is your alignment in this pose. Now you really want to focus on flexing your pinky toe toward your outer knee. And the reason for this, it protects your ankle, it protects your knee, and all the awareness is drawn in towards your hip to open up. Using your breath to open up in the pose, you're gonna allow for this knee to melt down to the earth. So even if you picture it in your mind, what it looks like, what it feels like, millimeter by millimeter, it will eventually open up. Very good. And Kate, of course, is connecting with the pose as well. And you can see the difference. She's actually able to come into a little bit deeper, but there still is a little bit of room. So if you can demonstrate really quickly what it would look like if you took your ankles out of alignment. Now, a lot of people tend to do this with their pose because you want to get your knees closer together. You want to get your knees closer to the ground. This actually weakens the knee. So you really want to focus on protecting your knee in this pose so that the focus is on your hip. Moving on from here, we're going to come into pigeon pose. Eka Pada Raja Kapotasana. Now Lee's going to demonstrate what this pose looks like. Again, if you're feeling a little bit tighter in the hips. So simply, when this pose comes up in the practice, know in your body what is available. So taking your ankle over your knee, again, flexing your pinky toe towards your outer knee, allowing this knee to open up. Your knee is protected and the focus is just on your hip. Finding length in your spine and feeling balance between both sits bones as you're in this pose. Think of also scooping out your lower abdomen so you're fully engaged in this pose. Now Kate is connecting with a fuller expression of the pose. She's able to come down with her leg extended back, with her shin drawn in close to her to protect her knee in this pose. She's actually pointing her toes. Now to inhale, lengthen, and then exhale even deeper into the pose. She can come down onto her elbows, stacked palms, or just on her forehead, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And this is a really great pose that you can actually practice at home when you're watching TV. It's something that you can eventually start to open up more and more and more into. And then eventually you'll connect with your full expression of the pose. Moving on from here, we're going to come into a low lunge. Anjaneyasana, low lunge. So for those of you who are feeling less open, you can stay on your hands. You can even walk your hands up to your knee, and Lee's just going to demonstrate that for us here. So taking his hand to his knees. This is totally fine in the low lunge. Now, if you wanted to go deeper into the pose, Kate's going to demonstrate this, heel toeing her right foot to the outer edge. This is actually going into a lizard pose now. So she's going to take her hands underneath her shoulders, staying here, and see if you can attempt to take your elbows down to the earth. Now, if you connect with this pose, or if this pose comes up in your practice and you're not able to take both elbows down to the earth, Lee's going to demonstrate what this looks like with just your hands to the ground. So this is our lizard pose. Heel toe your left foot out. So even staying on your hands, rolling onto the outer blade of your left foot just to open up that hip. Just spending a little bit of time here, maintaining a nice long spine, length to the top of your head. Sometimes what can happen in this pose is you start to drop your head and maybe look down towards your body. Keep your gaze towards your thumbs to maintain that nice long spine. From here, we're going to gently move into a seated twist. So Ardha Matsyendrasana. Now in this pose, what can happen is as soon as you start to bend both knees, what can happen is your hip starts to lift off of the ground. So what Kaye's going to demonstrate is what you can do to keep both hips rooted into the earth, two sits bones rooted into the earth, finding length in her spine on an inhale, exhaling to twist, and noticing that her extended leg allows for both hips to root into the ground. Now with Lee is demonstrating what it would look like to be able to bend both knees in the pose and keep both hips rooted into the earth. Now, if by chance you start to lean back, this can happen in the pose. Leaning back, shoulders are not in line with the hips. So what you want to do is try to stack your shoulders over your hips. So you're getting that nice twist along your thoracic spine. And then from here, I'll just get Kate and Lee to come into a counter twist. which is always nice juicy counter twist. And then coming to the end of our practice. So these are poses that you can add to your home practice or the modifications that you can add to your practice in the studio. So remember, with a patient practice, you can connect with your full expression of each pose at your own pace. I want to thank Kate and Lee for being with me today. Coming up next, Yoga Bites. Namaste. Swadhisthana, sacral chakra. The slow cooker can be your best friend. Simply throw your ingredients in it in the morning, and your food is ready when you get home from work. Check out this recipe. Set the slow cooker on low and give it 7 hours to bring the flavors together. This is so delicious. And remember, if you have a favorite recipe that you'd like to share, or maybe there is an Ayurvedic technique that you'd like us to try out on the show, feel free to post it on my Facebook page at k.yoga. So tune in next week for more Live, Breathe Yoga. Thank you for watching. Namaste.